Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.
Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Yeah! Hey now! How are you, everybody? Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. This week is cooking. It is another beautiful day in Southern Ontario where I come to you from every single day. And part of what I do here on the pod every day is I try and give you a counter narrative to what you're getting from the mainstream media. I know you like to think you watch the news and you're being informed on all of the different events around your community and across the country and around the world. Not necessarily. Keep in mind, those news presenters are narrators, and they're narrating a narrative. And there's certain things that the news would really like you to think. Well, I'll tell you what, just because they want you to think those things doesn't mean that's the only perspective. And here on After 9, I try and give you the counter narrative to what you're getting from the mainstream media. A lot of new listeners have checked in over the last couple of weeks, so if you're one of them, welcome. I'll let you know that tomorrow, Listener DMs Friday, I'm going to be reading your DMs about whatever you want to talk about. Doesn't need to be politics. It could be anything. We could talk about burgers. How about that? We could talk about hamburgers. Today is National Hamburger Day. I went through an exercise today on AI. And I said, factor in all of the relevant things that we might need to know about, like location, popularity, reviews, and more, and tell me what Canada's best hamburger is. Well, after a long, extensive search, I can tell you Canada's favorite burger is at A&W. In particular, the Teen Burger is Canada's favorite. That's followed by Harvey's, which was named the most Canadian burger. Five Guys came in at number 3. The fresh, never frozen appeal of Wendy's came in at number 4. That one was also named Best Value. The Burger's Priest was number 5, followed by McDonald's and Burger King, 6 and 7. Interesting. Didn't even make the top 5, yet they probably sell more burgers by volume than any of the other chains. Dairy Queen came in at number 8. That's a weird one. I've never had anything other than ice cream at Dairy Queen. I realize they're a full-service restaurant. I've just never taken part in the burger and fries experience there. Out west, there's a couple of restaurants. There is, let's see here, is this O Burger and Triple O's? Oh, Fat Burger and Triple O's. Apparently, those are big in Western Canada. I've never been to any of them, but those are the burgers that AI says are the top 10 burgers in Canada. While we're talking about food, let's talk about what our Prime Minister is eating. Holy cow. This guy and the in-flight catering. I get that he is a billionaire. I know that Mark Carney is one of the wealthiest people walking around, maybe the wealthiest person in Canada. The guy is a billionaire. And I get that as a billionaire, you become accustomed to certain tastes. And if you fly, you would like to have an in-flight meal that you're accustomed to. Well, I'm sorry, but it was that guy, Mark Carney, that said this not that long ago.
We won't transform our economy easily or in a few months. It will take some sacrifices, and it will take some time. Our government will work relentlessly to cut waste and drive efficiencies. And when we have to make difficult choices, we will be thoughtful, we'll be transparent, and we'll be fair.
Prime Minister Mark Carney, when he told Canadians they've got to make some sacrifices. We as a nation need to make some sacrifices, and the government is going to be relentless in fighting waste. Well, I'm looking at the most recent drop of Mark Carney's in-flight catering, and frankly, it's disgusting. Meal choice number 1. Tell me if the last time you flew on WestJet or Porter or Air Canada, You had roast chicken breast with gratin potatoes and vegetable poutine, I'm assuming? PTN. Or beefsteak with potato and vegetable. Were you offered those? What about a grilled salmon with rice and veg? A lamb rump with sautéed potatoes and veg? Roast chicken breast, beefsteak, grilled salmon, lamb rump. These are things that regular Canadians are not getting. But guess how much the Prime Minister's in-flight catering bill was? $52,610. That's how much the Prime Minister, 2 days after being sworn in last year, that's how much the bill was for his food on in-flight catering from the Canadian military. $52,610. At what point are we going to say enough's enough? At what point are we just going to acknowledge these people are taking advantage of us? They're just wasting our money. We're working our butts off to send every penny we've got to Ottawa, and that's the kind of stuff they're doing with it. Prime Minister Mark Carney, another $50,000 plus bill. That's on top of the 195 G's he spent on in-flight catering across 3 other trips. These people are soaking us in Ottawa. They're fully taking advantage of us. Before I get back to more on the Prime Minister and Alberta unity I'm going to be talking about today, I'm going to be talking about immigration, the economy, and Bill C-22. All of that is coming up. Let's go a little lighter, though. Like I said, it's a nice day here in Southern Ontario. I'm in a great mood. You know who I want to hear from? Probably the most successful Toronto Maple Leaf of the last 25 years, Mitch Marner. Now, he doesn't play with the Maple Leafs anymore. This time last year, he was on the golf course. 1 year later, he's getting ready to play for a Stanley Cup, and he's leading the playoffs in points. The guy that Toronto just let walk away. This is Mitch Marner the other night after Vegas punched their ticket to the Stanley Cup final.
Been good about staying in the moment and not celebrating too much, but we could see some emotion on the ice. Just what was that like?
Yeah, it was a special moment. Like I was saying to Sean, I mean, there's been some dark times in hockey for myself, honestly. Thankful for my family, my brother, my mom and dad, my wife, all my friends around me. So, yeah, that was a moment just to express, some joy and some, some fun there. And I'll enjoy it for the night and then, be ready to go to work.
How do you sum up the last 2 months?
It's been good. It's been a lot of fun, to be honest. It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment from every single guy in this locker room. And that's something you love to see out of your team. Guys just come to work every day excited, ready to work, want to make each other better. And on games, like I said, we have so much trust with whoever's going over the boards, and that showed again tonight.
Somebody remind me again why we let that elite player just walk away without even really trying to keep him in Toronto. Somebody tell me that. The knock on Mitch Marner was not very good in the playoffs. Can't help Toronto win a cup. Well, clearly he's fine in the playoffs. He's doing just great. Living a completely different life now than he was this time last year. Why did we let him go? We should have been at his front door, hat in hand, checkbook in the other, and said, just write in however much you want. I was a Leaf fan until last year's performance and until Mitch Marner walked away. And then I said, I'm done with this team. Can't do it anymore. And you know what? I'm not going to cheer for another team. I flirted with maybe the Bruins. I flirted with maybe the Habs. Thought about it for like half a second, and then I said no. But I am very happy for the Montreal fans. Great to see the team in the Eastern Conference Final. I know you're probably right pissed off at last night. What did they get? 3 shots on goal in the third period? That was it? Montreal lost 4-0 last night. In fairness, Montreal's played a lot of hockey. These playoffs have been long. 7-game series, games that went to overtime. Carolina, if they beat Montreal tomorrow, will have made it through the first 3 rounds in 13 games. The minimum. Well, +1. They lost 1 to Montreal. That was the only time Carolina's lost in the playoffs this year. I don't know why we let Mitch Marner go. I really don't understand it. Something else I want to play for you, again, on the lighter side. This is before I get to some of the harder stuff. Pierre Poilievre is going to speak in just a few minutes. Let's go to yesterday at the White House. Cabinet meeting. President Donald Trump with Pete Hegseth to his left and Marco Rubio to his right. The topic of aliens came up again. Listen to this.
We're now releasing a lot of things having to do with space. It's people are very interested in it. It actually became the #1 topic. We're releasing a lot of information having to do with extraterrestrial things, and people are totally fascinated by it. It's amazing. I wasn't sure if they would enjoy it. It's literally trending number one. Can you believe it? So a lot of people out there are like it, but we're releasing all of that information.
I'm glad the government is releasing all of the information. I would just ask that they release all of the information. Clearly, for a very long time, we've known about the existence of aliens and we've engaged with them. We shot one of them down over Lake Huron. We shot one down over Lake Huron. If you're listening right now in, let's say, eastern Michigan or western Ontario, southwestern Ontario, do you know that there was missiles flying over your head to shoot down an alien? Do you know that? It's all in the latest alien drop. I'm fascinated by it. I just think that the government's got to own up to it. Clearly, we know a lot more, or the government knows a lot more than they're letting on. Apparently, there's 4 different species of these aliens. 4 different ones. Which ones are we shooting down? Are we friendly with other ones? Have they actually infiltrated our government, and are they walking around the streets in society amongst the rest of us? The government knows the answer to that question. I'm just not confident they're going to tell us, you know? But we'll wait and see. I will give the White House the benefit of the doubt. They've already gone way further than any other administration has for transparency in whatever it is that's out there and what our relationship with them is. Friends, now I'm going to go to Ottawa. Yesterday, Leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, the guy who wants to be prime minister. And, you know, I maintain that our prime minister should maintain an ounce of common sense. I think our prime minister should be a common sense person. And maybe you're thinking, okay, well, Mark Carney's a common sense person. And maybe you're right. I know Pierre Poilievre is a common sense guy because he's looked at the geography of our country and he's going to break it down for Canadians. See, yesterday, I think the federal government was hoping that they'd get some big headlines, that they'd maybe even lure over some conservative support because they said they're going to start exporting LNG to Germany. This is going to be from a facility that doesn't even exist yet, and it's going to be on British Columbia's northwest coast. We're going to be exporting LNG from British Columbia to Germany. Does anyone see any inherent problem in that? Maybe open up a map and take a look at where British Columbia is and take a look at where Germany is, and then look at the dimensions of Canada. Here's Pierre Poilievre.
But before I comment on that, let me just say Conservatives are announcing today a new private members bill that will require mandatory Geography 101 for the Minister of Natural Resources. Because today he was asked an inconvenient question: how are you actually going to get natural gas from British Columbia to the North Sea? And his answer was that there's going to be a ship that's going to go all the way down to the Panama Canal, along the side of the United States, and then through the Caribbean islands, all the way back north to Germany. But most ships, he says, will be too big for that. So they'll have to go all the way down around the southern tip of Latin America and then all the way back. But even more than that, he's going to have ships that are going to go across the Pacific, around Asia, around Africa, and then all the way back to the northernmost part of Europe, where they will deliver the gas, when we could have simply delivered the gas from eastern Canada, where there were 3 terminals that the Liberals have killed.
Did they not think of that? You've got to be kidding me. We've signed this weird deal with Germany that we're going to send them LNG, but we decided for some reason we're going to do it from the British Columbia northwest coast. Why in the hell would we do that? Even if it's on a ship small enough to get through the Panama Canal, it's still got to go all the way down the U.S. West Coast, all the way down Mexico's coast, down to the Panama Canal, through the canal, up through the Caribbean islands, right up past the eastern half of the U.S. and Canada, and into the North Sea. Isn't part of the point of dealing with Canada and buying LNG to cut emissions? I know there's some people who think that's an important part of this equation, that we can cut emissions. How many emissions is that going to create sending that ship all the way around the world rather than just ship it from Canada's east coast? Why wouldn't we do that? If you're in Atlantic Canada right now, you've got to be thinking to yourself, these people are complete and total idiots. They're just stupid. How does that make sense on any level? To ship to Germany from British Columbia when you could ship from Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador. You could ship from PEI. There's so many different ways to do it from the East Coast, not the West Coast. It's bananas. Like, I actually laughed out loud when I saw the details of the Liberal plan yesterday. This is the kind of stuff they're doing that they say is going to make us far more self-reliant and make us our own best customer and make us completely detached from the U.S. because that relationship is ruptured. It's broken. That's not serious. Come on. I'm just calling balls and strikes here, friends. You know, I don't mean to pick on these people. Maybe they didn't understand the geography of trying to move that LNG. I don't know. But I mean, you got to admit, that's a completely preposterous idea when we could simply ship from the East Coast. Here's more of Pierre Poilievre yesterday outside the House of Commons.
Well, some of the
Liberal MPs are admitting they haven't even read the MOU. Well, what does that signal to you?
It signals to me that it's all an illusion, and that Mark Carney has told them it's never going to happen anyway. So ultimately, they believe Mark Carney was telling the truth when he wrote in his book Values that he wants to keep half of our oil and gas in the ground, when he's tried to defund oil and gas, and when he said carbon taxes should be bigger and broader. Liberal MPs who share that radical net zero anti-oil and gas agenda take great comfort in knowing that the Prime Minister privately agrees with them on that.
Can you see it any other way? Apparently, it's an astounding number of Liberals, members of the actual government, that haven't even read the MOU that the Prime Minister signed with Alberta. They haven't even read it, and they're probably not interested either. The question to Pierre Poilievre was, what does that signal to you that so many Liberals haven't read it? In case you missed that answer from Pierre, it was simply that Mark Carney told them, don't worry about it. It's never going to happen anyway. Is there any other way to look at it? Don't even worry about it. It's never going to happen. Okay, all right, great. I'm going golfing. Was that the conversation between these MPs and the Prime Minister? Don't even worry about it. It's never going to happen anyway. You know, a lot of the roadblocks he's put up would lead most people to believe it is never going to happen. Do this now, say we're going to do it, make it look like we're taking action here, and maybe, just maybe, that'll keep Alberta in Canada. Maybe that'll be enough to shut up those rednecks out in Alberta. I don't know, I could very easily see that being the conversation. I totally could. But they're not actually going to do it. How long do you figure until we see a shovel in the ground building a pipeline in Canada? How long? A pipeline to the British Columbia Northwest Coast, full of oil, bitumen. How long do you think until we see a shovel in the ground, and is it going to be too late by then? That's our key to prosperity. That's the engine that drives the country, the oil. It could make all of us extremely well off. But I don't know that we have the smartest people running this, guys. The British Columbia to Germany thing, I mean, that's still mind-boggling to me.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
But anyway, let's get to another one from the Prime Minister. This one is on, sorry, not the Prime Minister. Oh my God, that's a Freudian slip. The other day, I called the Prime Minister Premier Carney. And that was a slip of the tongue. I didn't realize I did it. I juggle a lot of different screens in front of me when I'm doing the pod, and I did not mean to do that. So I apologize if that came off disrespectful, calling him Premier Carney. That's right up there with Governor Carney, and we know he doesn't like that either. I did just say, now let's go back to the Prime Minister. It's a clip of Pierre Poilievre. Let me clarify. He is the leader of the opposition for now.
On Bill C-22, is there a path for Conservatives to support that bill in committee? And if so, what changes do you expect to see?
Well, once again, we see the Liberals going after the good guys. You know, they do this with firearms where they target licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested farmers, hunters, sport shooters, instead of going after gun criminals. When it comes to online crime, they choose censorship rather than shutting down perverts, pedophiles, and other predators. And now here we have another bill where they try to turn the entire tech sector into a gigantic surveillance arm of the state, which will kill many jobs and drive many of the best businesses out of our country. So it is just another example of a government that wants to control Canadians' lives. And you know, they've achieved something very unique. Normally we talk about the tension between liberty and order. They've managed to create total disorder while attacking liberty. You know, it's incredible. You see, we have total disorder in our streets. We're anti-Semitic riots everywhere, fire bombings of synagogues. We have crime and violent crime up 50%, extortion's up 2,400% in Surrey, and yet at the same time, they are using the heavy hand of the state to rob people of their basic liberties. You know, some people think you have to choose between liberty and order. The Liberals choose neither. We believe you can have ordered liberty if you have a government determined to stand on the side of law-abiding people.
Okay, fine words there from Pierre Poilievre. He was talking mainly about Bill C-22, and I feel like that's where we should go next. Let's talk about Bill C-22. Before I even play any of the committee audio for you, and the public safety minister, who came kind of unglued yesterday when he got asked a few questions about Bill C-22, the whole thing has fallen apart. The country is starting to realize. I told you earlier, I saw it in my DMs yesterday. People are right pissed off that the government is trying to do this with Bill C-22. Fortunately, the government is smart and intuitive enough to realize Canadians are starting to jump off the train on this one. They caught us. They realize what we're trying to do, and they don't like it. So they're going to do some amendments to Bill C-22. Before I get to any discussion on that, including from the public safety minister, let me play for you another party leader, Elizabeth May. Elizabeth May is squarely on the left. She is the leader of Canada's Green Party. Well, she doesn't like Bill C-22 at all.
You support the lawful access bill? Not a chance. We have to absolutely, sorry, Gary, but it is absolutely appalling that we're basically setting it up for tech companies to insert spyware to report on us to the police. Not something, so it needs a lot of amendments. We'll say that at a minimum. I'm working on amendments. Merci. Over to you, Gary. What do you think?
I think we need to get you a briefing.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Elizabeth right before Gary Anandasangri, the public safety minister, came up to the microphone. Elizabeth May, you just heard her say it. This is not something that's good for Canadians. We should not be empowering tech companies, actually ordering tech companies to create backdoor access to encrypted materials on our phones and in our homes and on our devices so that the government can listen in on it. Do you know part of what Bill C-22 would do? I'm told is it would empower the government to force the tech companies like Amazon and Google to allow remote turning on of the microphone on your smart speaker. You know those Alexas and Google speakers that we've all got in our homes? They have a microphone. That's how it hears you and the commands that you give it. This bill, apparently, would allow, or actually it would compel the tech companies to give the powers that be, the government, law enforcement, you name it, the power to order that the microphone be turned on so they can listen to what you're saying. So that they can listen to conversations in your own home or in your own office, wherever you happen to have that speaker. That's just one of the things that people are very concerned that Bill C-22 will allow. Okay, let's get to a little more audio. In fact, now let's go to Gary. This is normally Gun Grab Gary. He's the one who's trying to take all the firearms from the lawful firearms owners as opposed to going after the gangbangers and the smugglers who are bringing guns into Canada from the U.S. That's not a concern. Law-abiding, RCMP vetted citizens with hunting rifles. That's the problem. That's Gun Grab Gary. Well, on this particular topic, he's going to talk about Bill C-22. This one's another one of Gary's.
An amendment around metadata, that's also a big concern, that the year-long retention date that's in the bill. Would you be open to lessening that to a few months, as some people have suggested?
So the language says up to 1 year, retention up to 1 year. And it's very much in line. Australia, for example, has a 2-year retention period. So I believe 1 year is a reasonable timeline. If you look at a life of an investigation, oftentimes it takes several months to even get to that point, if not longer. So 1 year is informed by what law enforcement has said that they require for them to be able to do their jobs more effectively.
That was on the requirement that our metadata would need to be stored for up to a year by the tech companies in case the police ever want to know. I'm glad. I'm really happy that pods like this exist so that people can hear the real truth about real problems here in Canada. And the way I see it, Bill C-22 is a very big problem. The government is very, very defensive about this, but this is Trudeau-style politics. They put in these things that are gross government overreach. They try and shame anybody who disagrees with them, and they try and make it seem like it's a reasonable argument. Oh, well, in Australia, it's for 2 years. Who cares what they're doing in Australia? I don't. It doesn't matter to me. Sounds like they're living in a surveillance state in Australia if it's 2 years. No, thank you. And by the way, I'm tired of Australian laws being imported to Canada. We should be creating our own laws here in Canada. And that's regarding the social media ban, the metadata, and the surveillance. I'm tired of being in lockstep with Australia because it seems like they're going fairly radical over there. Now let's get back to Gary here. Here's him having a little crash out moment trying to defend Bill C-22.
So when we talk about privacy, there's a real conversation to be had as to what that entails. So the companies that are coming forth and talking about privacy protection, talking about vulnerabilities, better step up and provide their path to how they're protecting the privacy rights of Canadians.
Do you believe tech companies are misinforming Canadians on this bill?
I believe there's a number of areas of misinformation. And to be very clear, the encryption issue is one we will clarify.
I'm one of them. I'm one. Yep, no doubt he thinks I'm spreading mis and disinformation because I'm trying to explain to people what Bill C-22 is. It's insane, over-the-top government overreach. And you know what? Whatever your issue is, maybe your issue right now is the economy. Maybe it's crime. Maybe it's immigration. Maybe it's something more focused provincially, like healthcare or education. Whatever your priority is doesn't mean that this can't also be a priority. And whatever stripe you wear, whether you're a conservative, a liberal, a New Democrat, a Green, however you identify, PPC, whatever it is, you should absolutely reach out to your member of parliament if you live in a liberal riding and tell them your support ends if Bill C-22 passes. They will not get your vote. They will not get your donation. We can't allow this one to happen. Not the way it is. I still haven't even heard a compelling argument for why we need it. Seems to me that all this really does is take the judiciary oversight out of it. Seems like the police are going to have unprecedented powers and access to information that they never would have had otherwise. And I'm not even 100% confident from my glance at Bill C-22 that there's going to be enough judicial oversight to protect our rights. I'm not even convinced that a conviction would hold up in court if the evidence came from something related to Bill C-22. That's how flawed I think this is, and I don't think we should be allowing this government, as shady as they are at times, more access to what goes on in our homes, to who we're chatting with, to what the conversation is about. Even if you're doing nothing wrong, the vast majority of us are law-abiding citizens. Even if you're doing nothing wrong, it's none of Gary's goddamn business what you're up to. None.
Where big tech, whether it is Apple, Google, or the range of other big tech companies, are operating without any type of accountability, without any type of protection of privacy. So when we talk about privacy, there's a real conversation to be had as to what that entails. So the companies that are coming forth and talking about privacy protection, talking about vulnerabilities, better step up and provide their path to how they're protecting the privacy rights of Canadians.
Do you believe tech companies are misinforming Canadians on this bill?
I believe there's a number of areas of misinformation. And to be very clear, the encryption issue is one we will clarify, because this bill was never meant to breach encryption. The language is very clear. It's about systemic vulnerabilities. To us, we read that as ensuring that if encryption is breached, then that would not be allowed. So we will clarify it in the bill, and we look forward to working with the opposition on an appropriate language that we can live with. But also, the level of misinformation that is out there really doesn't speak to what the bill says, right? So for example, when we talk about metadata, and again, we will clarify what metadata is. Metadata, it does not imply that we are looking for backdoor ways of collecting information. This is about retention of data, and if you look at the Five Eyes G7 countries, they have very similar types of legislative tools that are embedded within their lawful access regime. Canada, incidentally, is the only country that doesn't have a lawful access regime. So it is not a matter of this is an optional bill. This is something that needs to happen. And as technology evolves, as technology continuously far outpace all of our abilities to even understand it, we need to have better tools. And what I believe...
This government's always wanting to give itself better tools. You notice that? Have any of the tools that they've given themselves, and go right back to COVID, because that's when they started talking about different tools that they need. Have any of those tools made your life any better, or put any more money in your bank account, or put any more meals on your table? Any of those tools? No, they have not. Hey, if the country is apparently in that desperate a need for intelligence, maybe we should look around at who's running around and what our system of crime and punishment is, and whether or not there's any deterrence to not commit the crimes that apparently this is supposed to address. We have a big problem in this country, big problem. Giving the police and the government even more surveillance tools like the ones they could have from Bill C-22, that is a massive mistake. Let's start throwing criminals in jail. Let's get the word out that if you break the law, there is going to be a tangible punishment for having done that. Maybe that'll soften things up. Maybe we should take a look at who we're letting into this country. Seems like there's some pretty unsavory individuals that we've allowed to just flow into the country, completely unchecked. Maybe that's part of the problem. C-22 is a violation, in my estimation, of all Canadians' rights. We have a right to privacy, and the government is gaslighting you, trying to claim that it's the tech companies that don't care about privacy. You know, the people who invented encryption technology? Oh, yeah, they're the problem. The government is protecting your privacy. Does anybody believe that? Seriously? Look in the mirror and say to yourself, I believe this government cares about protecting my privacy, and this is not about infringing on my rights. I don't think you can say that, can you? I'd have a hard time doing that. I would have a hard time with that.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
I got to move on because I'm running low on time. And by the way, like in the last 15 minutes of recording the pod, I guess a lot of people were listening to yesterday's because a whole flood more DMs just came in on Bill C-22. I'll have those for you tomorrow on the listener DMs episode. Mark Carney caught on a hot mic moment. He was with the housing minister, Gregor Robertson, and people are trying to figure out exactly what the prime minister meant when he said this. I'm going to try and give you the clearest audio I can. Again, it was a hot mic. It was not spoken into a microphone. It was just caught by microphones. Listen to this.
I mean, what's the would you back up? Back up. What are you doing? This is stupid. Because you're not offering. Take it.
That was all it was. Basically, what Mark Carney said there, the decipherable part was he said, what are you doing? This is stupid. You've got an off-ramp. Take it. And we aren't 100% clear on what the Prime Minister specifically meant there. However, a lot of people are reading into it that he was probably talking about Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and that's what he said to her. What are you doing? This is stupid. You've got an off-ramp. Take it. When it comes to Alberta sovereignty. And he was talking about that judge's ruling that basically canceled out the proposition of having a referendum. That's why they're now going to have a referendum about having a referendum. Was the Prime Minister embellishing a little bit there? Because I don't know that he would have said that directly to Danielle Smith's face. I don't know. I'm not even sure he was 100% talking about Danielle Smith. I mean, Gregor Robertson seems like a not very competent minister. This is the housing minister. Take a look at the housing market right now. Where are all these homes that he promised? And by the way, everybody's homes are losing value daily. I don't know that we've got the best and brightest running the housing portfolio. Maybe Carney was scolding him. We'll leave that. We'll put a pin in it for now. Danielle Smith did talk yesterday, though. She addressed the comment that I found very patronizing when the Prime Minister insinuated Albertans are bluffing with the thought of separation. Here's what Danielle Smith had to say about that. It's about a minute and a half long.
These projects, we need to do it for our people and for the benefit of all of Canada. And that's what I hope the other premiers will do.
And now even the Prime Minister, you mentioned politicians in Ottawa who's been, you seem to have a good relationship with. He was calling this, the referendum question, a dangerous bluff.
I would say it's it really. I would hesitate to try to make anyone who is approaching this in a spirit of goodwill into an enemy. We've got about 1 million Albertans who are frustrated with the relationship with Ottawa to a point where they think it's time to file the divorce papers. I don't feel that way. I feel that we should remain and work on our problems, and I think that's part of what I've demonstrated with the memorandum of understanding and the energy agreement that I arrived at with the Prime Minister. We come from different political parties. He still has members of his caucus who object to undoing a lot of the harmful policies. One of them quit today, Steven Guilbeault, who's the architect of most of that. I'm glad to see him go. I think that he has done more to damage national unity probably than any other politician. And I think that the fact that we can work out our differences and come to some common understanding that benefits both Alberta and Canada is the way our country should work. So I'm trying to show through my actions that I believe that Canada can work. I've got a little bit more convincing to do of my fellow Albertans, but this is why we need to have the debate, get the vote over on October the 19th, and then move on from it, because that's where I think it's going to be really exciting for us to talk together about how we're going to continue to make these kinds of investments for the benefit of everyone.
Let democracy happen. That's what Alberta is saying. We're going to let democracy happen. Danielle Smith seems to be insinuating the Prime Minister should reconsider his tone. That's exactly like I've been saying for the last couple of days. The Prime Minister is going about this all wrong if he's going to try and make bad guys out of the separatists in Alberta. Let me see here. What else? Danielle Smith saying, I find her very reassuring. Can I be honest with you? You know, I know that there's some people who are worried Canada might break up. I feel like Danielle Smith is a steady hand at the till. I feel like she is a patriot, and she is going to do whatever she has to do and make whatever argument she has to make to try and keep Alberta in Canada. I think that's Captain Canada that you just heard right there. Yesterday, the Prime Minister said that Canadians will probably never know what's in the secret MOU that he signed with the Chinese about cooperation between the Chinese police and Canadian police. Why do Canadians not have a right to know that? Well, yesterday, a former CSIS official spoke at the microphone in Ottawa. Listen to this.
Of my 32 years at CSIS, most of it was in counterintelligence. And when I started, it was the Cold War. And the threat landscape was pretty simple. There were adversarial states that were trying to steal secrets, cultivate sources, and traitors. That shifted considerably over time with the demise of the Soviet Union satellites and the onset of cyber. And what a lot of these states have been doing subsequent to that is leaning more towards influence. Why steal secrets when you can get access to the people that are going to carry out your country's policy goals. So that's a shift we've seen in Canada over all domains, whether we're talking about China, Russia, Iran, or others. We had a commission of inquiry, the Hogue Inquiry, which singled out China as one of the main areas of influence, of threatening influence, interference in diaspora communities, and political interference in elections. A lot of Canadians for the first time learned the extent and how comprehensive this activity was. Canada's resetting the relationship with China, and I think that's good. They're resetting with others. But my only comment would be this should be done with eyes wide open. We learned with the Meng affair and the two Michael tragedy that Canada did not have a special relationship with China. We sometimes have these illusions that we have a certain leverage or we have a special understood relationship we could use. The reality is often a lot more blunter than that. We don't. So my advice would be, let's go ahead. Let's see what we can do in terms of getting the relationship on a good, useful footing for all sectors of Canada. But we must also keep in mind that we need to safeguard our national security and we need to protect the people most vulnerable, which is the Canadians in those diasporic communities.
He's absolutely right. Hey, by the way, let's go back to what he said at the beginning there. You know, the Chinese, they used to have spies and they would try and steal our secrets, whether it be in military or telecom or what have you. They would try and steal Canada's secrets. Now they've realized it's just easier to buy off the politicians. Just go in and get people that are on your side that are going to influence national legislation, national priorities, national what have you, to their advantage. It's a lot easier to just buy off individuals than it is to have spies over here that could get caught and do a lifetime in prison. That's what they're doing. That's CSIS right there. My question is, which politicians? Which ones do you think are compromised? Go back and read the Hogue Inquiry report. Which politicians do you think are compromised? The government never answered that question, did they? Who are the MPs that were compromised? Are there more? Are there any more under investigation or suspected of working for foreign governments? Think about it, guys. Think about it. I'm not making any accusations, but does it add up in your head? Because it adds up in my head. Yesterday, Steven Guilbeault made it official. He's leaving, although not leaving right away. He's going to stick around and help Mark Carney pass whatever it is he needs to pass between now and the summer break. And then he's going to collect a check for the summer when the MPs aren't really doing that much anyway. Then he's going to step down. He did talk yesterday on CTV's Power Play with Vashi Kapellos. Listen to Steven Guilbeault.
Did they try to get you to stay?
There were some conversations.
Did the Prime Minister? I should be more specific.
There was some conversation with his office where they said they were interested in keeping me on board, but at the same time, I don't think they were particularly pleased with the fact that I was being publicly vocal in my disagreement with the government on some of those issues. So I think it's. I respect the Prime Minister. I respect the team and cabinet and my colleagues. It's just time for me. I came into and people come into politics for different reasons. That's why I came into politics. And if I can't work on that and help move those issues inside politics, then I'm just going to go and do it somewhere else.
Do you think the possibility exists for others to follow suit? What does your gut tell you?
I think it's a good question. I mean, as you know, in our parliamentary system, it's very rare to see a cabinet minister leave cabinet of their own. Usually you're asked to leave, or there's an election, there's a cabinet shuffle. I can tell you that I'm not the only one who's uncomfortable with what's happening. Other than that, I'm not sure what people will do.
What are you liberals going to do? Hey, by the way, if there was even a sniff that there were unhappy conservatives or conservatives that were ready to leave the caucus, step down even, that was going to be national news. And how do I know that? Because it has been national news nonstop for months in Canada. Every time there's even a hint of dissension in the ranks in the Conservative Party, they bring on the talking heads. All the news channels have got wall-to-wall coverage. What does this mean? What does this mean for Pierre Poilievre's leadership? All of it. They go nonstop over the top trying to sow distrust in the Conservative Party and in Pierre Poilievre. You just heard a former cabinet minister who left cabinet and is now leaving the caucus and resigning his seat say that there are others just like him that are not comfortable with what Mark Carney is doing from a liberal values perspective. Okay, where's the never-ending panels? Where's the major op-eds and editorials in all the papers about Mark Carney's leadership? Can he survive this? Come on. You must see the hypocrisy, right? Even if you like the hypocrisy because you don't like conservatives, you at least have to acknowledge there's a massive hypocrisy in how the media treats the conservatives versus how they treat the liberals, and that's a great example. You know what I'm saying is true. If there was even a hint of dissension in the conservative ranks, it would be nonstop news coverage. It would be all over talk radio. There'd be the panels and the pundits. They'd be everywhere, nonstop trying to undermine Pierre Poilievre's leadership. Nobody is asking about Mark Carney's leadership, and every person who leaves makes it more likely that we're going to have a federal election over this because the majority is slipping away. Friends, tomorrow, listener DMs. Can't wait to read what you've got for me today. I will have those in a Friday edition of Scott Fox After 9. Have yourselves a great one. Enjoy the day. I'll catch you right back here in less than 24 hours.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.